There it
There we
goes.
go.
All right.
Okay,
Perfect.
got it. Okay, well, Barb, you may not know me, but I'm Cindy Glavin with University of Illinois Extension SNAP Education Program. And I've been invited here today to talk about some of the healthy messaging signs, or what we refer to as nudges, that you've been seeing cropping up around the pantry, and how important it is for your role as a volunteer, that what you can do to help encourage those healthy choices at the pantry. Because when we make these small changes in the environment, what we hope is that they can make the healthy choice that easy choice. So food insecurity, which is defined as not having consistent access to enough healthy foods or nutritious foods for an active, healthy life. So not having food or being food insecure affects many aspects of people's lives. So, stress is a very huge factor, which contributes to many health issues. So if getting food can be less stressful, we can impact their health. No longer do we just think about guests getting enough food, but is it healthy food? Because studies have shown that there are links between food insecurity and chronic diseases. And in the United States, 6 out of 10 adults in the US have some type of chronic disease like heart disease or diabetes. So when you can give that person in the pantry some dignity, make them feel good about themselves today, it can help encourage them to maybe make the changes they need to in their lives tomorrow. So, the food access is just one thing that we can do. So I want you all to think about, when you go to a store, what makes you choose that store and what keeps you going back? I'll take any answers.
I'm going to answer. I'll get us started. I choose a store that's clean.
Okay.
And I am concerned about pricing, but then I also want it to look really like the produce and those items to look fresh.
Okay, those are good. I do the same. Anybody else?
Yeah, produce for sure. So I look for organic produce, and I choose stores that have a variety of organic produce. And there's not really that many stores that have that, so they tend to be more expensive, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, well, those are all things I think we all look for. What I also think about is when I walk into a store, what brings me back is that the workers look like they're happy to be there. They might be smiling. Maybe even being greeted when you walk the store. Now, that's probably a smaller store than it is like a big store like Jewel. And I think in general, just being treated with respect, that they value my business being there. So these are all actions and courtesies that we want to strive for at the pantry, because every person wants to feel like they are seen and respected. So by giving them that cheery and desirable shopping area, think about the your waiting room. It's bright and it's cheery. It's kind of a nice place to walk into versus a dingy green. It's that bright green, that's in there. So, this all makes the guests feel like they matter and that they deserve the choices as much as anybody who goes to Jewel, Aldi, or Walmart. So I think I'm in a lot of pantries, and West Suburban, I really think, has been very forward thinking in giving the guests the best shopping experiences. So what are the things that you have recognized that they have done that makes it a good shopping experience?
Well, I know, so I've been there about 2 months, so it's not that long, but I'm starting to see repeat people. So I start recognizing some people.
Okay.
And, some of them are like, oh, I missed you last week. I didn't get to see you. Or, welcome, my friend. I'm happy to have you here. Did you want some milk today? Or, whatever it might be. And I always seem to get a smile out of that when, they know that I recognize them.
Well, Barb, I think you can teach the class. I mean, that is so true. I think, being welcomed in that cheery area. You guys have an easy intake system. I think with very few invasive questions, the expanded hours that you have, you're really giving the guests what they need, when they need it. you know, because we're there to service them, not so much us. Yes, it's harder maybe to find the volunteers on those Saturdays or those evening hours that you might have. But, you know, giving them access to not only food, but you provide a lot of other services, whether they come to you or you have the resources available to them, you know, and just what it does for a person's psyche to be able to pick their own food versus just getting a box of food. You know, so those are, you know, lots of things that, you know, the pantry is doing so well with. And, you know, can it be really hard and embarrassing for many people to walk through those pantry doors? And, you know, as volunteers, you really do have such an impact in what their experiences is, but also what they put into their shopping basket. You know, so we go for those healthy food options. And Barb, you hit it right on the head, is greeting them when they walk into the pantry. You know, somebody says hello. And as you said, many come on those same days, same times. So getting to know who comes in and not being afraid to chat with them. You know, those that happens in kind of small stores. You know, I don't ever get that in Jewel, but you know, you can get it in this pantry setting, and it gives them that feeling like it's okay to be here. I feel good about this. So, you know, engaging them about their families, their foods, likes and dislikes. You know, the pantry is ever changing with what you get in there. So there's going to be lots of things that might be unusual for them. So, you know, those are opportunities for you to engage with them. You know, we always want to make sure that you're using that active listening skill. So, you know, if you're talking with someone, you want to make sure that you are listening to what they're saying and not hearing what you want to hear and then deciding what they need. When we want people to make those healthy choices, we need to remember that people don't like to be told what they should eat, and we can certainly give them a nudge in the right direction. So some of the things that has worked in a lot of pantry settings, what you do at West Suburban, is, you know, you have that big display of fruit and vegetables right as they walk in the door. So you've got something healthy that is drawing them in. It's colorful. It's making them feel good. Okay, this place is giving me some fresh produce, you know, because that's a big deal, right, in pantries to have that. And behind that, you have, you know, your refrigerator case where you're getting your protein with your milk and the eggs and your dairy, the cut fruits and vegetables. Again, it's something really nice and bright as they walk into the pantry. And what we've done is, you know, you have probably seen lots of different posters around. I'm going to hold them in front of my face, see if I can get it right here. You know, I think you have this one up. You know, we have them in English and Spanish. So if you need them in Spanish too, which I don't recall if we put them in there, you know, we've got the little nudging signs, you know, throughout. Again, just nudging people towards those healthier choices. We're not forcing them. It's just there. It's that little thing in the back of their head that they're looking at. You know, you make a good use of all of these kinds of signs. So those are there to promote, you know, healthy eating. And, you know, when you're talking with people, you always want to use that positive language, you know, to keep that moving forward. So, instead of using phrases like, you know, you really should eat whole grain, or you really should watch your sodium, you know, those are kind of negative, right? So instead say, have you ever tried a whole grain bread? It has really made me feel better. Or, you know, something along those lines. When you can make it more personal, that you're talking to them as a person and they deserve to be talked to, or talked with, I should say, not even talked to, you know, that's going to make that experience for them that much better. And you know, here in DuPage in particular, we have a lot of language barriers with a lot of the refugee population coming in. And I don't know, I know everybody there wears a name badge. Do they have name badges have that they speak another language on it if they do?
Some people's do, yes. I made a push for that this summer and I've not re-upped it. So that's a really great reminder to me to re-ask if anybody needs me to redo their named badge. Thanks,
Yeah,
Cindy.
because that's so important, because, you know, people want to feel like they know who they can go to. So if you don't speak another language, maybe there's another volunteer that's on. So make it a point when you sign in for your shift to find out who might speak another language that's on the same time you are. So if somebody comes up to you, you know, you don't have that language barrier. We talked a little bit about the kind of the produce is kind of hit or miss what you get in the pantry. So sometimes, you get, I think in the gardens, those zucchini that are this big and it's like, have you seen the size of this squash? But those again are opportunities for you to engage with the guests as they walk through the pantry. Or if you really like zucchini, then, my family really likes to cook it this way. Point out the recipes that they might have. We have, recipe boxes kind of throughout in some places. We might see these that are out there. Sometimes there, sometimes not. We've got lots of different recipes that we can put out, because some people are usually looking for ways to use the different foods that they have in the pantry. And then this is, I know, something near and dear to Paul's heart, is the Healthy Home Meal Kit. That has been such a wonderful idea, moving what we always did is bundling. He's taken it to the next direction. So I think you all probably know that they do a meal bundle each month. We do 2 of them, and these were October's. We did a tomato skillet and a easy vegetable soup. So it comes with a cute little cover. It has some healthy messaging on the back, and then the recipe comes in Spanish and English. And if it calls for spices, because spices are not always available in the pantry, we do a spice packet. So these are available. Paul, I think you're doing them on Thursdays, pretty much. They're coming out. Is that right?
Yes, we are running those usually on Thursdays.
Okay.
We use Wednesday to kind of pick and pack, and then Thursday we try to distribute them. I think going forward, we're going to try and do a better job in terms of making sure that the other days that we're open as well have access to it as well. We don't want to really limit it just to one day.
Okay. Yeah, and I think you do 100 each twice a month. So that's a big, a great thing that the pantry does, is because Paul is committed to having what they need to make that in the pantry. Sometimes like, I'm out of onions, what else can we use? So that gets in there, because again, you can't rely on what you're getting. But that's such a wonderful way, again, for you to engage with those pantry guests that come through. Ask them, have they tried it? Find out what's going to be in it. Gives you an opportunity to know where things might be in the pantry too. If you've maybe run out of the kits even, then they could pick up individual things that might be in there. Another thing is we have our community worker, Lisa, comes in twice a month to do, or not twice a month, once a month on the second Thursday of each month. She comes in to do what we call an Eat, Move, Save booth, but it's again, healthy messaging and a sample of something. So again, when people come in on that day, you can ask them if they've tried it. Make a point yourself to find out what it is that she's sampling today, and get to know where the things they might need to make those items in the pantry, where they might be, and show them, where they might be, instead of just pointing it out to them. So I'm
sorry, just a quick question. Where in the pantry is she? I haven't seen
She's
her.
usually in the front, right by the front door, I believe. And correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, is that still where she sets up?
Yes, she's right
Yeah.
outside, right.
So
in front.
she's there, the second Thursday of the month. So I don't know if you work Thursdays, because she's been asked to come. I think Thursday's her busiest day.
Yeah.
So she's been asked to come that busiest day, and she's a very dedicated one. She stays there all day long. I wasn't so good when I was a direct ed. I would come for 2 hours.
She's great. She was here this past Thursday, and she had made cranberry pumpkin muffins, I think.
Mhm.
And she
Yep.
had really tiny little ones, and she was
Mhm.
passing out samples, and everyone was thrilled with her samples.
Yeah, it's, if you can get people to sample things, then they might be more willing to try. You're probably going to get inundated with a lot of pumpkin coming up. Although I
Mhm.
did just hear there might be a pumpkin shortage, so who knows? But I think they say that every year. But yeah, so she, so that's been great to have her do that. But again, with produce, you never know what you're getting. So probably now you're probably going to be seeing a lot of squashes. So some of the things that we have is we have these 5-way cards about recipe links that can be used for different squash, shows you how to prepare it on the back. you know, we have access to these things. So as you are, you know, working there and you're getting some unusual stuff, we can get this stuff printed up for you and out if you need it. And I know you have a great volunteer that does all your little vignettes of marketing stuff. But, you know, we also have, you know, for the different Illinois produce, we have produce cards that come in English and Spanish, and they give you a little information and nutritional value on them, recipes on the back. So those things are available. So if, you know, you're working in there and you see that these are things that might be needed, you know, let Paul know, and we can get them printed up. Now, we don't always have, you know, if time is of the essence, you know, I remember there was sometime this summer, I think there's just a ton of cabbage. So I got a call, quickly put this together, didn't have time to print everything. So just put a QR code on them. You know, we can do things like this very easily. And for those more unique things like daikon and leeks, I don't know if you got inundated with those as well. These are things that we can prepare, and just, we don't maybe have recipes for them, but we can tell them how they can be used and what they might be able to substitute with. So there's lots of different ideas, you know, when you're working with produce, that's of ways that you can help the guests try new things, because again, we can't always go and pick exactly what we want, because, you know, it's just the nature of being in the pantry business, right? Another way to engage with a pantry guest is to look at the nudges that are put throughout. So, you know, I don't know if this one is up. I think it was at one time, you know, about the grains for cereal. You know, look for cereal with less than 12 grams of added sugar. You know, so if you're standing there and somebody's looking at their sugar, their cereal, and they're reaching down to get that sugary box, you know, start a conversation with them and say, you know, I tried adding some fresh fruit or the dried cranberries. Don't you have tons of those little bags of dried cranberries now, I'm assuming? You know, so the nudges that are throughout the store can also be a way for you to engage with the pantry guests as they come through. You know, and if you can invite them into how you utilize the things, that's even better. Now, I know I've heard from some people at pantries who say that a lot of people, they don't know how to cook, or they don't know how to prepare certain items. So if there are sites that you go to, whether it's Pinterest or All Recipes or YouTube, share that with them. Or better yet, Kristen has arranged to have Lisa come, and she does the healthy lifestyle workshops. And I guess she's doing them every month now too. On the fourth Thursday of the month, she's doing them in person now, which means they get a tasting, they get the recipe. And I don't know if she's adding in a food demo or not, but that's always an option too. You know, so those are, again, ways you can encourage them, you know, because people can be very intimidated to try new things if they don't know how to do it. So again, those healthy lifestyle workshops are good, or YouTube videos on how to do something. You know, and offer to go get them the flyer. And I think they usually, Lisa says, are usually up by the front desk if they've never heard of them, because I know, you know, that's a great way, you know, to engage with people that way. So when we have all this healthy messaging, it's all great. And I think our signage is just fabulous. But reality is, people don't really read a lot of signs, and they really almost often don't even see them. So there was one time I was in the pantry and I was talking with a volunteer, kind of pointing out what we had done. And one of the things that had been hanging up there is this was hanging up, you know, next to, I think, the canned beans or something like that, you know, free recipes, take one. And it was one of those, it was called the 5-way things on how to use beans. And, you know, she went back and this gentleman came up and started taking beans, and she walked up to him and said, hey, did you notice this? This is, you know, you can get 5 new ways of using beans. And he really did. He lit up like, oh, this is so great. I've been looking for some new ways. But again, he hadn't seen it. You know, it took her going up to him and saying something to him about that. And that's what I mean, is you can use those nudges and how you engage with the client, the guests. So I've done a lot of talking. Do you guys have any comments or questions?
One time I was by the milk section over there, and we got all these, they were pretty big boxes of pad thai sauce. They're big. And, you know, people would just kind of, you know, ignore it, right? Because a lot of people come, they just kind of look and see what they want. And so I thought, well, you know, let me see if I can encourage people, right? And so I said, oh, would you ever try pad thai sauce, or you'd be interested? You know, and sometimes they'd say, no, what is that? I don't even know what it is. And so I would describe what it is. And next to that was the vegetables. And at that time, there was a bunch of bok choy and some other things. And I said, oh, well, you can take that bok choy over there. So just what you were suggesting, right? You know, and I just gave them some ideas of different vegetables they can cook up with it. And I got rid of all of them. I got rid of all the boxes. So that worked out pretty well. So the suggestions you have seem to work very well.
Yeah, they do. And, you know, but some people are a little more apprehensive about approaching people and engaging them. You know, it can be hard. So, you know, as you maybe challenge yourself to go and do this, you remember to ask open-ended questions. So instead of saying, you should do this, is, well, how do you like to prepare that? Or would you like to hear a new way to prepare that? Or instead of, you should try this great soup, instead of, have you tried this soup? It's new in the pantry.
Yeah.
Or, you know, your kids will love it. But instead say, do your kids like to eat this? If so, then they might like this. I mean, do you hear that little difference? Is, you know, you're giving them that opportunity to talk and weigh in with their opinions, and it makes them feel important too, that you're asking their opinions. They're not just telling them what you should do. So the other thing to think about when you're engaging with them is, be careful when you're using jokes, if you're joking around with them. You know, you want to gauge their demeanor, I guess, too. And especially if English is not their first language, then jokes and things can be easily misunderstood. So that's something to think about as you go forward that. And another thing to think about is, make sure the guests know that you're happy to assist them. If they come and they ask you, you know, where are the eggs? Or aren't there any more eggs? Which, you know, maybe they've run out. Our tone and our body language can speak volumes. So you need to watch about rolling your eyes, or, you know, maybe you're stacking the shelves and somebody comes and asks you something, you really want to get it done. But the irritation in your voice can make them feel like, ooh, I shouldn't have asked that. You know, so just keep that in mind. You know, and you're trying to make this a good experience for them. So again, you can impact their health, because again, if they have that good experience, it can affect the rest of their lives to make other better choices, you know, down the line. So, you know, it's simple. Like if they come and ask you, where are the green beans? Instead of just saying, oh, they're over there by the XYZ. Go with them and show them, because again, you're building them up and telling them that they're important enough for your time. So, you know, these are nothing that's rocket science with any of this, but it's just making sure they feel important enough for you. You know, it's hard for them to walk through those doors. So that experience of giving them that dignity to be there. So Debbie, how long have you been with West Suburban Volunteering? Oh, I can't hear you. The infamous Zoom issues.
I know, right?
Okay. Well, 2 years. Okay. So she's been around a long time. It would have been great to have her feedback too. You know, but even Colleen and Paul, you can weigh in on this. You know, what are some other things that make it easy for you to engage with the guests that walk through the door?
I think for me, a couple of things that help. One is just the overall like environment itself. It is I think across the board, the volunteers really do a good job in terms of trying to create that welcoming sense of environment. And so there's almost like a sense of being able to feed off of that energy as well. I think for myself, it's just really taking that time to really for the guests or for the customer to really feel like it's not like I'm not rushing to something else. I'm not trying to do anything else, that I'm focused on them. That really right at that moment, this is all that's really important is what's happening right now between the two of us. And so whatever it is that they need to share and whatever it is they want to share with me, I'm grateful for that. And I take that in. And then also demonstrating that there's that follow-up, that they know that it's not just heard, but they're, where there are opportunities for me to act on that, what they're sharing with me, that happens. So it doesn't feel like they're just talking just to be, that somebody's actually paying attention to what they're sharing.
Thank you. Because it really is so important, to make them feel good. So I was going to have an activity for you, but I'm going to try this one because I think this is coming from the food bank next month, is canned pork. So say you have all this canned pork. What are you going to do? Try and get it to move off those shelves, because it's not something I think that's highly desired by pantry guests. What would you do if you're going to try and engage using this canned pork?
I've never heard of canned pork.
Okay, so some research on canned pork is needed.
Yeah.
Me too. I mean, people will walk by it because it's, people want fresh, right? And unfortunately, what's easy is to get the canned stuff. But remember, any of those canned meats and things can be used like tacos or chili or any type of soup. So if people kind of turn their noses up at something like that, it's an opportunity for you to step in and tell them what they can do with it, or I'd say what you do at home with it, but probably none of us on this call probably use a canned product other than maybe tuna or something like that. So, that's going to be a hard one. But, again, it's another opportunity for you to engage with the guests as they walk through the door.
Cindy, I think it's important. I think, a couple of things. One, I think engaging with people like yourself, right, when we get those difficult ingredients, as you've mentioned. I think the other things that we do is really try to make sure we're looking at product placement. Where is it within the shopping trip? Because if it's earlier in the shopping trip, most likely we're going to see more of it move than if it's towards the end of it. Mm-hmm. And then also looking really hard at what are those complementary products that go along with that, whether it's meal suggestions or condiments or something else that ties it in, so that we start to build that food story, that they can see it on their plate. They can see it in their microwave, like it makes sense. At some point, those little nudges, I think really help when we're trying to introduce a product that may be unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm. That is so important. And I love, the setup of your pantry where you have those little outcroppings and you have some volunteers that come in and kind of set up displays, and just that alone makes them feel like you've got your own, that you're trying to make it look nice for them. And again, that just speaks volumes for the experience that they have. So, every pantry is different, and we certainly don't have all the answers to make a perfect pantry. But because as volunteers, you are on that pantry floor interacting with the guests, if you have suggestions, I think Paul would probably be very happy to hear them. I'd be happy to hear them because I'm in a lot of pantries in DuPage County. So if you think there's some way that would be a good way to promote healthy eating, we're all ears for things like that. Let us know. But other than that, that's really all I have for today. I want to thank you guys who did show up today. It's much nicer talking to some faces versus, black boxes and with that. But I want to thank all the volunteers that come out because, I'm sure Colleen says this to you all the time, you're really the backbone of the pantry. Mm-hmm. And so just thank you for doing what you do and showing up every day because, it's hard. And if I'm in the pantry and you see me, come introduce yourself to me. I probably won't remember you with that little box around your face, but please come do that. And if you have any comments or questions or anything more, I'm happy to stay on.
I just have a question and, I don't know how to address it, but, we have some people that have dietary needs and
Mhm.
I'm sensitive to that because I have celiac disease and I have to eat gluten-free. And I've encountered a few guests who said the same thing. They're
Mhm.
like, oh, you don't have anything gluten-free. And I apologize and I say, well, we can make best use of the fruits and the vegetables, things that are
Mhm.
naturally gluten-free. Well, the other day I was in the back of the pantry and I happened to notice there were some items and one woman had said that. And I said, well, hold on a second. And I ran in the back and I grabbed those couple of gluten-free items that I had seen and brought it out. And she was so thankful for that.
Mhm.
But I'm sensitive to that because I
Mhm.
have that situation and I know a lot of other people don't. So is there any way to get more gluten-free type items? I know that's not a high priority, but just something I wanted to throw out there.
Paul,
No,
I think that's a question for you.
yeah, that one's for me. No, Barbara, I really appreciate you bringing that up. That is something, when we're looking at whether it's gluten-free or lower sugar or lower sodium items, those are things that we're always trying to get more of, and we're asking the food bank when they ask us what else can we do, right? What other sources of food can we get? Those are always at the top of our list. We're also working with other wholesalers as well, grocery wholesalers as well, to be able to try and get food that we can't get at the food bank in the quantities that we need to be able to give it to have it regularly for our guests, because we want to be able to provide all those options for them and say, come and see us. Yes, we're going to have it. What I'll also say is that on our virtual food pantry site, we're looking at a different program for our virtual food pantry site, where a customer will be able to say, I want to see everything that's gluten-free, and it'll
Nice.
curate the list for them so that they can quickly find those gluten-free items and they don't have to go through pages and pages of regular items as well. So we're kind of trying to look at it both in the store environment, but also in the virtual side as well.
Nice.
And maybe Paul, you and I can talk about doing some type of signage for when you have things, and maybe a shelf can be dedicated to alternative eating styles or something like that. We can brainstorm something and do that so they know a space that's dedicated in the pantry to that. So if that's something you want to do, we can certainly talk about that too.
Coming in January, Cindy. Mark
Oh,
it on your
wow.
calendar. It is coming in
Okay.
January.
Okay. Well, then let's talk before that.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay, well, look at Colleen. I think we've slid in right at 30 minutes.
Very good job. Very good job. All right. Well, thank you all for being on this call, and it will be available to all volunteers by the end of the day.
Awesome.
Thanks so
Great.
much.
Okay,
Thanks,
can you send it to
everyone.
me too, Colleen?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.